He was 19 years old when the war found him. Not the kind of war people imagine in speeches or history books. Not the kind with glory or music or flags waving in slow motion. This war found him in the quiet moments, in the space between heartbeats, in the instant when boyhood ended and something colder took its place. His name was Thomas Edward Hale. Before the war, Thomas was just another farm boy from Ohio. The kind of kid who woke up before sunrise because the rooster didn't care if you were tired. The kind who smelled like dirt and hay by noon and soap by supper. He had hands already rough at 19, palms calloused from work, not from weapons. He laughed easily. He talked about the future like it was something guaranteed. He wanted to be a mechanic. Maybe open a small garage someday. Fix engines. Make broken things run again. He never talked about dying. In the summer of 1917, the newspapers said the war was necessary. They said it was honorable. They said it was quick. They said young men would be home by Christmas. Thomas believed them. His mother cried when the letter came. His father didn't. His father just nodded, slow and stiff, like a man accepting whether he couldn't change. Thomas hugged his younger sister at the station and told her he'd bring her something from Europe. Something fancy. Something French. He boarded the train smiling. That was the last easy smile anyone ever saw from him. The journey across the Atlantic was his first lesson. The ship smelled of oil, sweat, and fear. Hundreds of young men packed together, trying to act brave, trying not to think about the dark water beneath them. At night, Thomas lay in his bunk listening to the creak of metal and the distant churn of the engines, wondering if German submarines were tracking them even now. Some of the men joked. Some prayed. Some stared at nothing. Thomas wrote his first letter home on that ship. It was short, optimistic, full of reassurances he didn't yet know were lies. Asterisk, I'm fine. The food's decent. The ocean's bigger than I imagined. Don't worry about me. Asterisk, he meant every word at the time. France was mud. That was the second lesson. Not the clean brown dirt of Ohio fields, but thick, sucking, endless mud that clung to boots and uniforms and skin. Mud that swallowed equipment. Mud that smelled of rot and iron and something worse. Something human. The trenches cut across the land like scars that refused to heal. Walls reinforced with wood and sandbags. Floors slick with water. Rats bold enough to stare at you while they fed. Lice that never left. The air heavy with smoke, dampness, and the constant distant thunder of artillery. Thomas arrived at the front in late autumn. By then, the war had been chewing through men for years. Veterans looked at the new arrivals with expressions Thomas couldn't read at first. Not resentment, not pity, recognition, like men who had once stood where he stood, knowing what came next. The first shell hit before Thomas even understood what the sound meant. It started as a low whistle rising fast, then a violent crash that shook the earth itself. Dirt rained down. Someone screamed. Someone else laughed, high-pitched and hysterical. Thomas froze. His body locked up, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs. He tasted metal in his mouth. His fingers trembled around his rifle. A sergeant grabbed him by the collar and yanked him down into the trench. Get your head down, kid. That night, Thomas didn't sleep. He lay awake listening to explosions roll across the darkness. Each one a reminder that somewhere nearby, someone was being torn apart by forces too big to fight back against. Every sound made him flinch. Every shadow felt alive. He thought of home, of his mother's kitchen, of the way the fields looked at dusk. He realized slowly that nothing back there could protect him now. Days blurred together. Stand to at dawn. Stand to at dusk. Long hours of waiting punctuated by moments of absolute terror. Patrols through no man's land, where the ground was littered with shell craters and bodies that had been there so long they no longer looked human. Thomas learned to recognize the smell of death. He learned how to sleep sitting up, rifle across his knees. He learned not to scream when the shells came close. He learned that courage wasn't loud or heroic. It was quiet. It was staying put when every instinct told you to run. Men disappeared. Some were transferred. Some were wounded. Some were simply gone. Their bunks empty. Their names crossed out on lists. Thomas stopped asking where they went. The answers were always the same. The letter came in December. A thin envelope, edges smudged with dirt. Handwriting instantly familiar. His mother's hand. Careful. Neat. Thomas waited until night to read it. Crouched in the trench with a candle shielded from the wind. Dear Tommy, *, the snow came early this year. Your father says it reminds him of when he was young. Your sister is growing fast. She talks about you all the time. She tells everyone her brother is a hero. *, hero. The word sat heavy on his chest. *, we pray every night for your safety. Come home to us. *. Thomas folded the letter slowly, deliberately, like if he was careful enough, the world might go back to the way it was. He didn't write back right away. He didn't know how to explain what the war was doing to him. The attack came at dawn. No warning. No time to think. Whistles blew. Ladders went up. Orders were shouted over the roar of artillery. Over the top, Thomas climbed. The moment his head cleared the trench, the world exploded. Machine gun fire ripped through the air like tearing fabric. Men fell before they took 3 steps. The ground churned beneath him as shells detonated, throwing dirt and bodies alike into the air. Thomas ran. Not because he was brave, but because stopping meant dying. He jumped a crater, slipped, caught himself on a corpse half buried in mud. His breath came in ragged gasps. His rifle felt impossibly heavy. Around him, the line dissolved into chaos. He saw a friend from training go down, clutching his leg, screaming for his mother. He saw another man charging forward with a bayonet, face twisted into something feral, only to vanish in a burst of dirt and smoke. The noise was overwhelming, continuous, relentless. Thomas reached the enemy trench almost by accident. He fell into it hard, knocking the wind from his lungs. For a moment there was silence. Then a German soldier appeared at the far end of the trench. They stared at each other, both young, both terrified, both holding rifles they barely knew how to use. The German moved first. Thomas fired. The shot echoed in the narrow trench, deafening. The German fell backward, eyes wide in shock. Thomas stood there shaking, staring at what he had done. This wasn't like shooting targets. This was a person. A boy. The sergeant shoved past him, shouting orders. The moment was gone, but the memory stayed. After the attack, the trench was theirs. The cost was everything. Thomas helped carry the wounded back. He slipped in blood and mud. He held pressure on wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. He listened to men beg for morphine, beg for water, beg not to be left alone. Some died while he was holding their hands. Some died staring at him, eyes glassy, breaths slowing until they stopped altogether. That night, Thomas threw up behind the trench wall until there was nothing left in his stomach. No one commented. They had all done the same at some point. Winter tightened its grip. Cold settled into the trenches, biting through uniforms and bones alike. Fingers went numb. Feet swelled and cracked. Trench foot claimed men almost as surely as bullets. Thomas stopped counting the days. Time no longer moved forward. It just existed. He dreamed of home, but the dreams were wrong. Twisted. The farm was there, but it was shelled and broken. His mother's voice called his name, but when he turned, it came from the mouth of a corpse. He woke up gasping, heart racing, convinced he was back in no man's land. Sometimes he wished he wouldn't wake up at all. In February, he received another letter. This one was from his father. Short, direct, *, proud of you, son. Do your duty. Come back when it's done. *. Thomas read it twice. He didn't feel proud. He felt tired. The gas attack came without warning. A strange smell drifted across the trench, sharp and sweet at the same time. Men started coughing, eyes burning. Gas! Gas! Masks went on in a panic. Thomas fumbled with his fingers clumsy with fear. He got it sealed just in time. Around him, men weren't so lucky. They clawed at their throats, choking, collapsing in convulsions. The sound of it was something Thomas would never forget. Wet, desperate. He watched one man try to scream and fail. The gas passed eventually. The bodies remained. That night, Thomas wrote in his journal, "Not a letter, a confession. I don't know how much more of this I can take." By spring, Thomas looked older than his father. His face was thinner, his eyes hollow. He moved carefully, like someone expecting pain at any moment. He stopped talking about the future. He stopped talking at all. Then, one evening, an order came down. A major offensive. One final push. Thomas understood what that meant. More ladders. More whistles. More names crossed off lists. That night, he asked for paper. Not for a journal. For a letter. The candle flickered as he wrote. His hands shook, not from cold, but from something deeper. He took his time. He chose his words carefully. "Dear Mom and Dad, asterisk if you are reading this, then I didn't make it home. I want you to know that I thought of you every day. I carried home with me, even when everything around me was broken. Asterisk. Asterisk I was scared more times than I can count. I don't feel brave. I don't feel like a hero. I just tried to do what was right for the men beside me. Asterisk. Asterisk please tell Sarah that I kept my promise. I brought her something from Europe. I'm sorry it's not something she can hold. Asterisk. Asterisk I don't regret loving you. That was the best thing I ever did. Asterisk. Your son, Thomas." He folded the letter. He handed it to the chaplain. Then he waited for dawn. The morning was gray. The air was still. Too still. Thomas climbed the ladder when the whistle blew. He didn't look back. The first steps were familiar. The noise. The chaos. The fear. A shell landed close. Too close. There was a flash. A pressure like the world folding in on itself. And then, nothing. The war went on. The trenches shifted. The lines moved. The guns eventually fell silent. Thomas Edward Hale was listed as killed in action. 19 years old. Buried in France. His last letter reached Ohio weeks later. His mother read it once. Then again. Then she pressed it to her chest and cried until there were no tears left. His father stood by the window, staring at the fields, saying nothing. His sister kept the letter in a box under her bed. She never forgot his name. Wars are often told with numbers, casualties, dates, victories, but wars are made of people like Thomas. 19-year-old boys who believed the world would let them grow old, who wrote letters in flickering candlelight, who carried home in their hearts until there was no heart left to carry it. This was his war. This was his last letter. And this is why the trenches must never be forgotten.